Hello, once again, my beautiful gamers. It is I, Rtyuiope, from Rtyuiope's Game Room. This is a bit of an unscripted video, so it won't be as professional, if you even want to call it that, like my other videos. And today we're going to be talking about my wishes and hopes for this upcoming E3, 2018 E3. This video will be dated in a couple weeks, but it's whatever. I just want to archive my thoughts here and give you guys a little bit of supplementary content between me and my reviews. As you can tell, this video won't be as clean cut as most of my videos. This is just literally me talking into a microphone, giving out my personal opinions and thoughts, and it's just a time where we can chill, talk about things, talk in the comments about what you think of my opinions, if you have your own wishes and things like that, and I'll be sure to respond. I usually respond to some comments down below. Anyway, without further ado, let us get started and talk about one of the most exciting yet disappointing times of the year, and that is E3, where usually a lot of people tend to hope for the best and rarely ever receive it. Now, I have a bullet point list of a few games, a few things that are on my realistic expectations list of what to expect for E3 2018. And I also have an unreal expectations list, which is a lot shorter, but Anyway, let's see here. I'll probably add a follow-up video to go on top of this one, see if any of the things I wanted to come true, what do I think of games that were actually announced, so on and so forth. Anyway, for my main expectations list, first we have Persona 3 Dancing and Persona 5 Dancing. These games have not been announced for America yet, but if we're going to be honest, Atlus really isn't that dumb to not release these games to America. It's literally fan service, the video game. It's the kind of stuff that prints money, and they know it. I just think that the reason why they have been holding off on announcing it in America is perhaps, maybe, most definitely, they don't have anything to show off at E3, because Atlus USA usually never has anything to show off at E3. Their E3 presence is very weak most of the time. No offense, Atlus USA, I love you guys. You guys do hard work. It's just that the whole communication between Atlus USA and Atlus Japan isn't too good, so that if Atlus Japan is working on a new game, they rarely, if ever, will tell Atlus USA about it, and so we won't really get anything at E3 about it, which is very, very unfortunate. However, I think that's why we haven't seen any announcement for Persona 3 and Persona 5 Dancing. Is probably most likely due to the fact that Atlus USA has nothing else to announce except probably a Vanillaware game, which has its fan base. I like Vanillaware games, but most people don't give two shits about. Not to deface Vanillaware games, because they're actually really good. It's just that most people don't like to give them a try. On top of that, if we're going to stick on to with Atlus USA, I expect them to also announce a port, or not a port, the port / remake / remaster, whatever it was, for Caligula, which is a game for Vita, which was written by Tadashi Satomi, who, if you do not know, wrote Persona 1 and 2 and Digital Devil Saga and all that stuff. He was really responsible for a lot of the more interesting plot lines. Even if you didn't like them that much, you can't deny that they were some pretty interesting concepts that he had come up with. But yeah, he wrote Caligula. It was a game that came out on Vita, and no one bought it, because, unfortunately, the Vita did not do too well here stateside. I'm not sure about its numbers in Japan, of course. However, if it's not indicative of Atlus's faith in that title on the Vita, they only released it digitally, so that kind of blows for a collector such as myself. However, I fully expect that they have a little bit more faith in the PS4 remaster port, Caligula Overdose, which should be coming out soon. I think it already came out in Japan at the time of this recording. If not, then well. But I think that might be a game that Atlus USA will announce on top of that. Atlas USA might not announce the Yakuza 3, 4, 5 PS4 ports for America, announce the localization. We might, because the Alice PR lady that's active on Reddit, Sarah.x, I don't know if that's what she actually wants to be called, but Sarah, I'll just call her Sarah. She said Atlas USA, or Atlas Europe, I actually think is what she works for, but Atlas Europe and I think Atlas USA have a lot more communication than Atlas Japan, but they were definitely saying they were listening to our thoughts and will definitely take into consideration what we've been saying. That's not a yes or no, black and white, straight cut kind of deal. She was just saying, you know, we're hearing what you guys are saying, so hopefully we will get the Yakuza 3, 4, and 5 ports for PS4. I really hope so, because Yakuza 5 never came out to America, and it'd be really, well, it did come out in America, just didn't come on physically, so it would really be disappointing if I wasn't able to get Yakuza 5 on my shelf with all my other Yakuza games, and having it on one console is definitely a nice thing to have for someone like me who likes to have all of the same series on one shelf. So if they're on the same console, then hey, you know, that works out for me. Slightly related to Atlas. Well, is there anything else I want to talk about Atlas? I'll save that for my Unreal expectations. I'm hoping that SMT5 is shown off. I don't think it will be shown off at the Atlas booth, especially, like I said, Atlas Japan does not really care about Atlas USA in the slightest. Well, I wouldn't say that. Atlas Japan is starting to notice Atlas USA because of the success of Persona 5 in America. I'm like, oh crap, we actually have fans in America. Well, yes, of course you do. And because of that, I think Atlas Japan is now, you know, actually going to try with Atlas USA. But as it stands right now, Atlas Japan is not really too worried about what Atlas USA is doing. I don't think. That's all conjecture, by the way. Shoot, they could be calling every single day. I don't know. But just as I see from how localizations, how long they take, and how all these things play out, I just feel like Atlas Japan is just not communicating with their USA branch in the slightest, which is just really not good, especially in 2018, where a lot of games can be released simultaneously. They really need to catch up with that, but that's a different video topic I'll talk about later. Back onto E3. SMT5, I think, might be shown off here at E3. Not at the Atlas booth, like I was saying, because Atlas Japan doesn't care. Atlas Japan would probably show that off at the Nintendo Treehouse event, if it is going to be there. What's his? Maniacs. Kazuyuki Yamai? Yamai? I think that's his name. Maniacs, nickname guy. He said that SMT5's development is going a lot faster thanks to the Unreal Engine. However, it is going to still be a while, considering that they literally just threw that like SMT5 trailer, the first one we saw, like just out of nowhere. Like that was, I almost feel like they made it the day of, although that might not be the case. So SMT5 might be a ways off, and they might not have anything to show. But if they do, I think, hypothetically speaking, if they do have something to show off, I think we'll definitely see it at the Treehouse event. If not, just a little blurb, a little like, hey, look, SMT5, look at it, it's pretty cool, what's gonna happen. So maybe we'll see what happens. It's partially related to Atlas. Demon Souls. I really honestly hope that we get a Demon Souls remastered or a Demon Souls remake. Ideally, I'd want a Demon Souls remake, hopefully by the guys who did the Shadow of the Colossus remake. And why do I think that would happen? Well, as you may know, I'm pretty active on Twitter. I follow a lot of game devs, and recently, about like 3 months ago, they were asking, what game would you like to see us remake after Shadow of the Colossus? And a lot of people voted Metal Gear Solid, a lot of people voted Ico, whatever you want to say, and a lot of people also voted for Demon Souls, because this was around the time that Dark Souls Remastered was announced, so people was like, where's our Demon Souls Remastered? So, since Demon Souls is basically like the spiritual ancestor to Bloodborne, and it's a PlayStation IP, I could definitely see PlayStation throwing money at that development studio's way to make a Demon Souls remake, which I hope happens, and I hope they go the extra mile with the remake, despite probably some fans out there complaining, oh, it's not up to snuff to the original. But in Demon Souls, if you're not aware, there is a 6th Archstone in the game, which had to be cut entirely due to time constraints. And the Archstone was going to be awesome. You got to go to basically Castle Canehurst from Bloodborne and fight demons, werewolves, vampires, weird macabre creatures, and it's just like right up my alley. I like that kind of horror aesthetic type thing. And I was just looking, because they have so many assets for it still. All the monsters, all the enemies you'd fight in that area are like fully modeled. They have some NPCs fully modeled. The only thing they didn't get done was like the map. They had like a vague idea of what the map was going to look like, but it wasn't completed. And what I hope, my honest to God hope, is that if it does get remade by that studio, I hope they go the extra mile and they add that 6th Archstone, because lore-wise, that 6th Archstone needs to exist anyway to complete the story, even though in the original Demon Souls that Archstone's destroyed, and so that means you basically don't really save the day in the end since the Archstone is gone. But I hope that if they do go the extra mile and add that Archstone, even if it's DLC, I'll fork over $20 just to play some more new Demon Souls, dude. I love Demon Souls, probably my favorite Souls game. And adding that 6th Archstone would add so much replay value to it. And I think Demon Souls would definitely do way better now, considering that the Souls series has so much clout behind it. That the Demon Souls game, which when it originally came out, it was a bit of a cult classic. Didn't do too well, considering that it was the first game in the series, and it was on PS3, which is a very narrow market. People who got it, became a classic. But then Dark Souls came out on like Xbox 360, PS3, PC, all that, and that blew up. And now a lot of people want to go back and play Demon Souls, but not a lot of people have PS3s anymore. So what I'm saying is that, hey, Sony, you could make a lot of money remaking Demon Souls, and especially if you market it as the spiritual ancestor to Bloodborne, because if you compare Bloodborne to Demon Souls, there's a lot of things that they carried between the two. And it's pretty obvious that Bloodborne was supposed to be like a spiritual successor of sorts to Demon Souls. They even had like Umbasa in the game files. Like, dude, come on. Now, worst case scenario for that situation is that we just get a Demon Souls remastered that literally adds nothing, like the Dark Souls remastered, which would suck. But, you know, at least you could have Demon Souls on PS4 and the servers would be active again, which, hey, I cannot complain too much, but I really hope that's not the case. I hope we just go on for a full-on remake from the studio who gave us the Shadow of the Colossus remake. And I know some fans would get really aggravated saying, oh, but why didn't Dark Souls get that treatment? Well, it's because Demon Souls is better. That's just my opinion, by the way. You know, you have your own. Anyway, moving on. At the Square Enix event, I, honest to God, hope that we finally get a new Legacy of Kain game. Square Enix, what are you doing? If you're not aware, Square Enix a couple years ago acquired the rights to the Eidos properties and Crystal Dynamics properties. So that means they got Hitman, which they've already rebooted, Tomb Raider they've already rebooted, Deus Ex they've already rebooted / made sequel, you know, whatever. I think Hitman was also supposed to be a sequel and then they rebooted it, but whatever. The one property they touched alright, but they didn't touch it right, was Legacy of Kain, which is my favorite Eidos / Crystal Dynamics property, next to, you know, of course, Deus Ex. Deus Ex, however, already got, like, decent games. Human Revolution's fantastic. Mankind Divided is phenomenal. I love Mankind Divided. It's just that, you know, Square Enix screwed them over, so now that they can't finish the game, so, you know. Anyway. Legacy of Kain. So Legacy of Kain, if you were not aware, is a game about Kain, you know, titular character, who was a nobleman who turns into a vampire, realizes that his fate is to sacrifice himself for the balance of the universe, and decides, hey, I'm not going to do that, that's dumb, I don't want to die, so that the whole universe gets turned upside down, and he basically has to right his wrongs. And the game also follows a secondary protagonist, Raziel, from the Soul Reaver games, which are also Legacy of Kain games, and their stories kind of intertwine with each other. Now, Legacy of Kain is one of my favorite game series of all time, has been since I was a wee little lad. And so a couple years ago, Square Enix was planning on making a reboot to the series, Legacy of Kain Dead Souls, which there's some gameplay and some like a build of the game out there, not that a playable build, but like footage of said build that's out there in the wild, and it was interesting. It was interesting. I know a lot of Legacy of Kain fans hate it. It's interesting. That's all I can say about it. They were definitely taking the series in some weird directions that I'm sure that many people wouldn't appreciate it. You know, I'm not too big of a fan of the decisions they decided to make with it, but at the end of the day, it was canceled, and the director of the game, like, also turned out to really hate the Legacy of Kain series, which sucks. Also, another thing you should know about the Legacy of Kain series is that most of it was written by Amy Hennig, the phenomenal writer behind the Legacy of Kain series, Uncharted series. She's one of the best writers out there right now. I love her work so much, and I wish she would do more games. And I honestly wish she would do more Legacy of Kain games. And her writing for Legacy of Kain is really, really good. There's obviously some, you know, like, weird plot things that happen in it, just because it sounds like just because there's some weird things going on in that story. But overall, her world building and character building is just amazing. I don't know what else to say. And this guy, this director, comes along, hired by Square Enix, and he's like, oh, all of this is stupid. Like, I guess I'm glad that Dead Son is dead. No pun intended. But the unfortunate side about that is that because that game was canceled, we got Nosgoth. Now, you might have heard of Nosgoth. It was a Square Enix's response to League of Legends, essentially. There's no really other way to put it as that. Basically, it's a team v team type game where you played as vampires and you PvP'd each other, fought each other. And that was pretty, you know, alright, it was okay, but why would you make a multiplayer game off of a series that's predominantly known for its single player and fantastic writing? I don't know. I think Square Enix horribly mismanaged the Legacy of Kain series, and I honest to God think that Square Enix is probably one of the worst worst company to ever acquire the rights to the Eidos and Crystal Dynamics properties. Sure, they gave us great games such as Hitman Absolution, the Tomb Raider reboot was pretty good, Deus Ex Human Revolution and Mankind Divided are fantastic, but at the end of the day, Square Enix keeps screwing them over. Eidos Montreal wants to really make more Deus Ex games and make more, like, expand upon that Deus Ex universe, and then Square Enix comes along, he's like, no, you're making an Avengers game. Like, I love the Avengers, I love Marvel, I love all that, but really? Crystal Dynamics, the people, Crystal Dynamics and Eidos, the people who make, like these types of games that don't even fit, like, the Avengers. Maybe the Avengers games will be good. Maybe it'll be one of my favorite games. I don't know. But we lost. Well, it's not really lost. They said they're still going to work on the series. It's just going to be pushed back until the unforeseeable future. Deus Ex, a perfectly good reboot series to Deus Ex for an Avengers game. Why? And then we're also not going to get a Legacy of Kain game. And, you know, I hope because, like, last year there was some talk, there was some buzz about this guy who did some concept art at a supposed pitch for the Legacy of Kain series. It was a reboot of sorts, but it still was faithful to the original. His concept art had Kain in his original, like, black armor, and it was awesome looking, and it looks like it would have just been like a full-scale remake of, like, Blood Omen that's also sort of a reboot. I would have been okay with that. As long as it's faithful to the original series, that would have been awesome. But from what I've heard about that pitch, Square Enix turned it down. So, who knows, you know? Now, to get off the topic of being petty, let's talk about Fallout. So, I hope for a new Fallout game to come out. Not one by Bethesda. I like Fallout 4. Fallout 4 was fine. Obviously, it was a very neutered version of what we know of Fallout. Expect out of a Fallout game. However, I hope that we get another third-party Fallout game, because I like the whole concept that third parties come in and develop Fallout games, because that works so well with Obsidian, partially because the original Fallout developers came back and worked on New Vegas. However, I'm not sure if I'd want Obsidian to make another Fallout game, considering that Obsidian's current status is less than favorable. There's a lot of internal conflicts going on. Most of the people who worked on New Vegas are gone now. So I feel like if Obsidian did make another Fallout, it could be good. Not to bash on the people who work there right now, because they're all still talented people. But I just feel I'm just afraid that it wouldn't have that same charm as New Vegas, which is of course my favorite Fallout game. Yeah, I know. And I just don't think that Obsidian would be the best. If they were, get the IP again, that'd be fine. I'm sure they'd do a decent job on it. But if they gave Fallout to a different studio, perhaps we could see some unique, different takes on the Fallout universe. However, I'm not sure if we'll get a Fallout game so soon after the release of Fallout 4. I feel like what we got with New Vegas right after Fallout 3 was a bit of a freak accident that will probably never happen again, unfortunately. But if Bethesda were to release or were to hand off the IP for another game to another studio, I'd be okay with that. My next hope is another Elder Scrolls. A lot of Bethesda stuff here. I like Bethesda games. They're flawed. They're buggy. They're not always the most in-depth, but hey, they're still a fun type of game to get yourself lost into, and a good time killer, and it's sometimes really interesting to explore the worlds they build. If there's one thing that I say Bethesda's really good at, is making some interesting maps to explore with a lot of hidden goodies in it. Hey, what can I say? Story might not always be the good, side quests might be a little bland. The world is always something very interesting that I love to explore. That's my favorite part about Skyrim. Skyrim's my least favorite Elder Scrolls game that I've played. I've only played Morrowind, Oblivion, and bits of Arena on Skyrim. And well, from a story standpoint, I'd like to say Skyrim's my least favorite, but the world of Skyrim is very interesting and fun to explore. That being said, there's not much more to say about it. I just hope that they announce another Elder Scrolls 6, not that dumb Elder Scrolls card game, because no one cares. Moving on, I hope that, back to Square Enix, I don't know why I didn't just put this with the Legacy of Kain thing, but Square Enix, I hope, announces the Kingdom Hearts 3 release date, and I have no doubts that's where it will be announced. I think that we'll get it, and I think it's probably going to be like a Final Fantasy 15 situation where it's probably going to be released somewhere in November, and, that's fine by me. I think that's a perfectly reasonable release time. Right around the holiday season where they could sell a lot of copies. It's right around my birthday, so, hey. And all in all, Kingdom Hearts 3 release date, there's not much more to say about it. And my last reasonable expectation is some English gameplay of Gungrave VR. As you've seen in my previous reviews, I am very excited for Gungrave. I love Gungrave, I love the series, love the characters, love the world, and from what I've seen of Gungrave VR, it's a little bit of a mess, but I will still pick it up nonetheless, because it is a Gungrave game. And I didn't know this, but Yasuhiro Naito did work on Gungrave VR, so yeah, I'll support him. He's one of my favorite artists. And it's being handled by Xseed, who, release usually a lot of niche games, but I'll definitely pick up Gungrave VR. I fully expect the release date to be announced at E3, probably to get some English gameplay. I heard there's going to be a dub in it, which is very interesting. But it makes sense, natural progression with Gungrave Overdose, which had a dub. I hope that they at least bring back the same cast, even Mika, even though Mika's voice acting was a little weird in Gungrave Overdose, it still was a little it was still endearing. But yeah, that's what I want out of the Gungrave VR thing. It's just a release date. I asked them on Twitter if they're going to release a physical version. They said they were, so that's one more bullet in my Gungrave collection, so Now, as for unreal expectations, this is going to be a short section because I know this will never happen, but if this were to happen, I'd die of happiness. Like that one Vincent McMahon GIF, I would fall out of my chair. Unrealistic expectations. Persona 3 and Persona 4 remake in the Persona 5 engine. Atlas Japan always does this survey like almost every year, asking people what they want. And one of the options is always like Persona 3 4 remake and Persona 1 and 2 remake. I think a Persona 3 and 4 remake is a lot more likely, considering that they make a lot more money, and they'd be a lot more easier to remake than Persona 1 and 2. And especially if you remake them in the Persona 5 engine and release them on PS4, oh my god, that would be amazing, and I would love that. Make some slight tweaks to like Persona 3 so that you don't have to date every girl you talk to. That would be great. And just a few changes like that. Maybe make the dungeons not so monotonous. That would take a little bit of time, but you know. But if they were able to pull that off, I think a Persona 3 and 4 remake would really make them a lot of money. But of course, that's an unrealistic expectation. Atlas Japan would never announce that at an E3. They would probably announce that at a personal stream, like a Persona stream or something, or a Persona concert. But in a realistic world where things make sense, Persona 3 and 4 remake being announced would be fantastic. And as for my hyper unrealistic expectations, Persona 1 and 2 remake, I don't really need to explain myself on that, why that's hyper unrealistic. But anyway, that is my 2 cents on E3. These are my expectations, things I'd like to see, things I would like to hear about, you know, things like that. And if any of these are announced or none of these are announced, you know, life will move on, things will be fine. I'll get over it. But if all these things are announced or some of these things are announced, I'll be more than happy with all of the things that they're showing off. So, yep, that was just a crazy rambling, 30-minute rambling. I can't believe it went on this long, of me just talking about video games for a big video game Christmas extravaganza type deal. And yeah, that's pretty much all there is to it. Thanks if you made it through all of this. Thank you very much. I hope to do more content like this, where it's just me, no script, just talking about things that, you know, that I think you guys would find interesting. So if you like this video, you can share it with people. Let it be part of the conversation. You guys can talk down to the comments down below, and I'll be sure to respond to some comments. I have a Patreon up that you could donate at least $1 to, and then you could join my Discord, where we all talk about video games, show our game collections, all that interesting fun stuff. And yeah, we also do like suggestions on there too. But anyway, this has been my E3 2018 rambling. Thank you for listening, and if you like this kind of content, let me know in the comments down below too, and I'll be sure to do more. Anyway, thank you very much, and I'll see you guys later. Peace.